Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome back to the MTG Arena set review for War of the Spark. It's time to talk about the third and final part of the multicolor cards before we talk about the last part with the colorless cards. So this is the penultimate part of the series. Once again, got a little delayed, sorry about that. Real life came in the way with some new student job stuff and the new Eternal set being released and so on. But yeah, we'll push through now and hope at least some of you guys are still watching and listening and with me. You know the drill. Before we get on to the cards, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon, and make sure to not miss out on future content. Alright everybody, let's get started. Okay, first we have Tamio. The cool thing on this page is if you mouse over, you see the alternate art Japanese anime artwork version of the Planeswalkers. So yeah, Tamio, pretty good, already has made a fair share of impact in Standard, going right into Simic Nexus as a 2 or 3 of, providing a way to dig for your keycards, as well as returning critical pieces like a Reclamation or a Root Snare, for example, to make sure you can go off or you can survive to go off, which is really nice, and in the process protecting you from discard and some sacrifice effects is nice. Sacrifice effects don't come up much, but discard is a real thing. Like Duress is one of the better sideboard cards, and there's also Thought Erasure in main decks and so on. So it has its utility. Usually it comes down after they use the copies they had in their opening hand, but they can always draw into more and then this protects you. So it's a very minor effect, but it's nice. Yeah, outside of Nexus, card is not likely to do that much, I think, because it doesn't impact the board, doesn't protect itself well, and has a very specific ability set. But in that deck, it's very good. And in Limited, I think the card is okay, but not that great, especially because in Limited, you name a card and dig for it. You usually mostly have one-offs, especially of your good cards. So it's not that great. The -3 is nice, but for 4 mana, that's really not a good deal. The static ability is not very good. So in Limited, I think if I have it, I'll play it, but there are a lot of things I would pick over it. Next we have Teferi Time Raveler. One of the arguably most powerful Planeswalkers to come out of the new set, simply because it's so cheap and still does a whole lot of things. First of all, the static ability is really powerful and oppressive. Each opponent can cast spells only any time they could cast a sorcery. That is really, really strong. It's also much stronger than something like the opponent can only play spells on their own turn, which at least would allow you to still play them as instants in combat or use counter spells on your own turn and so on. But the fact that it says as a sorcery means a lot of your cards are much worse or unplayable, even if they are counter magic type stuff. So, and that all for like 3 mana. The card kills, like almost kills Simic Nexus alone. Slots into a lot of decks, replaces itself with the -3 ability by cycling and gaining you some tempo. So if you bounce something that costs 3 or more, you basically replace Teferi in terms of tempo and card economy and still are stuck, like left with a one loyalty Teferi. That lets you eventually reuse the minus again, and until then lets you play your sorceries as instants, and also still cripples your opponent. Card is really, really amazing, really powerful, and it goes in decks from like White Weenie to Esper Control. Just an amazing card. And in Limited, no difference. Powerful card. Easy high pick, first pick, or whenever you see it. You will not too likely see it past first pick, so that's a point there. Alright, 10th District Legionnaire. Pretty strong card actually for a 2-drop. It's a 2 mana 2/2 haste, and when you target it with a spell, it becomes a it gets +1/+1 counter and scry 1. So it keeps growing, which is really nice. It is obviously already an essential part of the sort of Boros heroic style deck, even though there is no actual keyword heroic right now. This is basically exactly heroic, just not named as such, which is a bit weird. I wonder why they don't do that. I feel like they could or should maybe just reuse keywords if they show up like that, rather than just not use it because it's not in the set technically, but it is exactly heroic, so it's a bit weird that they don't use keywords they established before. Maybe to not confuse newer players, I guess, but it's a bit strange if you know the keyword and have been around and then it's like, where did the keyword go? Anyway, pretty cool card, pretty strong, and in limited, also a great 2-drop. Boros is a pretty aggressive color, so fits right in. Next we have Time Wipe, another pretty nice constructed card and also a limited bomb. That sweepers, especially with a bit of an upside, usually cost 5 these days, is nothing new. This one costs 1 blue to make sure that it's anchored to a specific color combination. But in return, you can save your best creature while blowing up the board, which especially in limited is super powerful, and even in constructed this is very good. It makes it so much easier to kind of have this one strong unit lying around, strong creature lying around, that kind of stalls the opponent and forces them to overextend on the board to fight the creature. And then you can just time wipe, save the creature, and blow everything up. Which is exactly as powerful as it sounds in both formats. So this card gets at least a lot of sideboard play in standard, and in limited it's just a slam dunk bomb. Next we have Tolsimir, Friend to Wolves, another limited bomb, I would say. It's a 5 mana 3/3 that comes with another 3/3, 3 life, and the possibility to let your 3/3 wolf token fight an opposing creature. So you get a lot of value, some nice tempo, and yeah, also basically multiple bodies, which is really, really good. And if you ever get to reuse Tolsimir somehow, like blink it or whatever, it becomes even better. So yeah, a really, really powerful limited card. In constructed, it seems a bit underpowered. There's a small chance that in some mid-range decks maybe some people mess around with it, but all in all I think it's less likely to be particularly relevant to constructed. Next we have Tyrant Scorn. So yeah, Smother has gotten quite a bunch better. It costs a blue now instead of a colorless, but in addition you can also return target creature to its owner's hand. You can use it to save your own creatures, you can use it to gain tempo on bigger creatures of the opponent, unlike in the past where you have a Smother and then it's just completely blank if your opponent doesn't have small creatures, which is a huge, huge upside. Any like more restricted card having an alternate mode that is super flexible is amazing, even if the alternate mode is not super powerful. So yeah, Tyrant Scorn, amazing card, great limited removal, great constructed card and removal in anything that can cast it. Really like the card, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of it in any color combination that can support it. Next we have Widespread Brutality. Yeah, another card for some amass synergies. Right now there's not really any successful amass deck in standard, and I don't know if there ever will be one, but if there would be one, this would be a centerpiece of it. Being able to amass for 2 and then sweep the board, kill everything but your zombie army is really good. Basically a 4 mana Raz, because in an amass deck you can probably fairly well set up an amass token often that is big enough to kill everything else. And then we all know how good 4 mana sweepers are, and 4 mana sweepers that leave you behind with a decent sized body is even more powerful, so this can be pretty brutal. Obviously it has the issue of only dealing 2 damage if the opponent kills the rest of your zombie army in response, which is a big downside here, especially in a fairly removal heavy format as standard right now. And in limited, I mean, this is a stone cold bomb, an absolute killer. 4 mana sweepers with body are great in limited, and it's also harder in limited to blow this up and disrupt it. Now we're on to the hybrid cards, which means lots of planeswalkers. First we have Angra, Captain of Chaos. You can see here the alternate artwork again. Yeah, Angra's pretty great. Not very constructed playable, I think, but in limited it's a really strong planeswalker. First of all, ManuS for all your creatures can be really annoying, and then amassing for 2 is pretty nice. Basically you get a 2/2, and the next turn you turn it into a 4/4, and then you have a 1 loyalty Angras that makes this 4/4 a menace, and everything else you have as well. So yeah, pretty strong planeswalker, and only gets better with proliferate, because then you proliferate on your amass token and on Angras, and then you can amass again on the token if you want to by giving up on the menace, and so on and so forth. Next we have Ashok, Dream Render. This is one of my more preferred alternate artworks. Like, this is one of my favorites of the alternate ones. It's also cool that the alternate ones have a bit more art going outside the frame, which is nice. But yeah, anyway, Ashok looks really cool. It's not that impressive though. It can be an interesting sideboard card, especially in older formats, eternal formats, because searching the library is pretty powerful there, and denying your opponent to search the library can be really, really strong. And also it has the graveyard hate option. The ability is not that strong, like neither in limited nor in constructed. In limited it can be good if you have kind of a defensive deck with enough proliferate, because then you can just kind of use Ashok as a win condition, mill your opponent out. Ashok on its own already mills for 20, so you don't need a lot of proliferate to mill enough that your opponent gets decked, but you kind of got to build around it. So yeah, that's it for Ashok. On to the next one. Next we have Dovan, Hand of Control. Once again, alternate artwork. Doesn't look as anime-like as some of the others. But yeah, not a very good planeswalker. In limited, particularly underwhelming, I think, most of the time. In constructed, this looks a lot better. First of all, making all the artifacts, instants, or sorceries of your opponent cost 1 more in limited can be in constructed can be really powerful against the right decks. Like mono red really doesn't like that. Against control decks it's pretty nice. And yeah, the -1 ability can help you protect other planeswalkers. We've seen a couple of like planeswalker decks popping up lately that mess around with Dovan in constructed. So there's some potential there. Next we have Wortley, the Sun's Heart. Once again, alternate artwork, pretty cool. Yeah, she's basically a 3 mana 7 loyalty planeswalker, and mostly there for her static ability, which is each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then you have this like secondary marginal ability of gaining life equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control by using the -3. Which also means you would need to proliferate twice to use it the third time. Not that that is super relevant, because yeah, basically Wortley is just kind of an enchantment that has the upside of gaining you life when you need to. Not very powerful. Maybe you can, like, in very specific decks, kind of build around her in limited, but all in all, I usually don't want her in my decks. And in constructed, I think there are just better options to gain life and do the things she does, and her static ability is just not powerful enough, I think, in constructed to warrant building around it. Next we have Kyra, Bane of the Dead. Sorry. First of all, alternate artwork, very anime-like. Not a big fan of this one. So yeah, in constructed I think this card is pretty much completely irrelevant because it's way too expensive for what it does. But in limited it's a pretty good removal. Sure, 6 mana to exile a creature is not that great, but getting to exile another creature the next turn is really powerful. And then you have the synergy with Proliferate, which here once again requires you to proliferate twice, which is good because otherwise it would be too powerful. And then being able to ignore Hexproof is super marginal, but it can come up. I just recently exiled one of the 5/3 crocodiles with Kiya, which was pretty relevant, so it's nice when it matters. It just doesn't matter very often. Yeah, a very powerful limited card. Happy to first pick this most of the time. Next we have Kyra, Behemoth Reckoner. The alternate art is really badass, really like this one. Also not as anime-like, so it kind of like blends nicely. And yeah, Kyra is pretty sweet. Mostly limited, but could even maybe see some constructed use of the card here. Once again, another Planeswalker that's more about the static ability than the activated ability. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card, which is kind of the main purpose. And if you have enough things that trigger this, the card looks really good. Also because she's basically a ramp spell. She kind of ramps from 3 to 5 by the -1 being a way to untap target permanent, often a land in that case. And it also has particularly nice synergy with New Horizon, because then you can even get 2 mana out of her and ramp further. So yeah, a pretty cool card. More of a like solid card, so in limited wouldn't pick it particularly high, but can totally see myself being happy having her in the deck if I have enough ways to trigger her, and could be an interesting card, at least as like a sideboard card in the right decks and constructed maybe. Next we have Nahariya, Storm of Stone. Another artwork. This is super anime like, and not the biggest fan. I just feel like, I mean, I actually like anime, but I don't really like anime art on Magic card. It just looks weird and out of place. But yeah, anyway, Nahariya, 4 mana, 6 loyalty, and as long as it's your turn, creatures you control have first strike, so that's nice, especially in limited. And equip abilities you activate cost 1 less to activate, which is rarely ever relevant with so few equipments in the format. But yeah, the first strike is actually pretty good and pretty nice bonus in limited. And yeah, she's just an okay removal really. For -X, she deals X damage to target tapped creature. So yeah, she's kind of just gonna kill 1 or 2 creatures and maybe stick around to give your board first strike on your turn, which can be super powerful though. So all in all, she's pretty good. And she goes into a lot of decks, especially the more aggressive decks, so she does some nice stuff. Quite a good uncommon, but not a great uncommon. Next we have Healy, Sublime Artificer. This card is just amazing. Alternate artwork. Really don't like this one. Rather stick to this one that looks so much better. Yeah, she's amazing. We all know how good young Pyromancer was. This costs 1 mana more, but is a whole lot harder to kill, given that it's a Planeswalker and has 5 loyalty, and quickly can start protecting herself by making tokens. Another one of those Planeswalkers that's more about the static ability than the minus ability. And the minus ability can come in handy, be it in limited, to push some damage or just reuse some stuff. But in constructed in particular, it does really cool stuff. Like imagine this with Terramander. You just -2 it on the token, make the token a Terramander, adapt the token, and then you're left with a 5/5 servo afterwards permanently, which is amazing. So each Healy can like turn 2 servos into 5/5s with a Terramander, for example, which is incredible. Yeah, this card is really powerful and a great card in standard. Messing around with a couple of ideas with this card, and it's just a lot of fun and also really powerful. And in limited, basically if your deck is spell heavy, like for example his spell synergy is a deck, this card can also get out of hand real quick. But she really shines in constructed, and I could see the card also being relevant in older formats like modern or even older ones for the exact reason of what she does. Next we have Samut, Tyrant Smasher. Another alternate artwork here. Yeah, not too big of a fan of the card. In limited it seems fine, because 4 mana all your stuff has haste, and you can buff them and scry a bit. Isn't terrible, but it's not great either, so not super happy with this one. And in constructed, I don't see this ever doing anything. We already have Rhythm of the Wild, which is better. And we have the 4-cost Domri, which is also kind of better. So yeah, this has no place anywhere really, unfortunately. So Samut sucks once again, more or less. Rough life. Next we have Vraska, Swarm's Eminence. Let's take a look. That's a pretty cool one. It's a bit like cute. childlike from the face, but otherwise it looks pretty badass. But yeah, this is one of the best uncommon planeswalkers in limited, super powerful. It's a 4 mana, 5 loyalty planeswalker. She makes 2/1/1 black assassin creature tokens with Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals damage to a planeswalker, destroy that planeswalker. So she's really good at like fighting opposing planeswalkers on empty boards, and also as long as she's around, if a Death Touch creature deals damage to a player or planeswalker, the thing grows. So yeah, she becomes even better with Proliferate, because you already get a third token from proliferating ones, because the static ability is not that important. So yeah, she's really strong in limited, quite a powerhouse. Happily first pick her if the rare or mythic slot isn't a bomb, for example. And yeah, hybrid mana also makes her very flexible. And last but not least, we have the Box Chopper, that also seems to not have an alternate artwork. Tesseract, Master of the Bridge. It's a 6 mana, 5 loyalty planeswalkers, and creatures and planeswalkers you cast have affinity for artifacts, so you can kind of churn them out, but I don't see this being very relevant usually. And then for +2, he deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts you control, and you gain X life, the typical like Teferi Tesseract Drain thing. For -3, you return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. Decent, but neither of those two protects him, and he's a 6-cost planeswalker that goes up to 7, so some protection is still nice. And yeah, for -8, you exile the top 10 cards of your library and put all artifacts from among them onto the battlefield. So it does some nice and strong like kind of card advantage stuff, but it's very narrow. It can only generate like resources. It doesn't really protect itself very well, and it's very expensive, and I don't think there's enough like artifact synergy stuff in standard for it to make it, and everywhere else it's like way too expensive and underpowered. So yeah, don't see this card really fitting anywhere. I mean, it's just a box topper, but this time it's no Nexus, so it's just a bad box topper really. I don't know, maybe it's interesting in some casual formats, but not in competitive formats really. Alright, that concludes the last part of the multicolor cards, and I'll be back ASAP with the final part of the series with all the colorless cards to discuss them and wrap it up. Okay, hope you guys still enjoying the series. Let me know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends if you enjoy it. Any kind of interaction with the content really helps me and the visibility of the content, so really appreciate that. And if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification icon to not miss out on future content, and please consider whitelisting YouTube on your ad block. That also really helps a lot and is a great way to support us content creators for free. Okay, that's it again for this time. I'm your host ManuS. I thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.